Right now, somewhere in America, a family is sitting in a lawyer's office, signing paperwork they believe will protect their parents' home forever. They feel relief. They feel smart. They feel like they finally did the responsible thing. And in 18 months, when a nursing home bill arrives for $9,000 a month, that same family is going to find out the document they signed does almost nothing to protect them. Not because the lawyer lied, not because they were careless, but because almost nobody explains the difference between the trust that protects you and the trust that quietly hands your house to the state. And in 2026, that difference matters more than it ever has. Most people assume that putting a house in a trust automatically shields it from Medicaid, from nursing home costs, from creditors, from everything. That belief is everywhere. It's repeated at dinner tables, in Facebook groups, even by well-meaning friends who swear their cousin's family did the trust thing and saved the house. But here's the uncomfortable truth. The most common type of trust that families create, the one most estate planning packages default to, does not protect your home from Medicaid at all. In fact, it can make things worse. And by the time most families discover this, it's already too late to fix it. Before we go further, if you care about protecting what you've worked your whole life to build, hit that subscribe button and tap the like. This channel exists to help you see the financial traps before they close, not after. Because the people who lose the most are almost always the ones who found out 1 year too late. So let's start with the trap itself, because it's hiding inside 3 simple words: revocable living trust. If you've done any estate planning in the last 20 years, there's a good chance you have one of these. A revocable living trust is incredibly popular, and for good reason. It helps your family avoid probate court. It keeps things private. It makes settling your estate faster and cheaper after you pass away. For those purposes, it's genuinely useful. But here's where things get dangerous. A revocable trust, by definition, means you can change it, control it, and pull assets back out of it whenever you want. And to Medicaid, that control means one thing: the house is still yours, completely, fully, 100% yours, as far as eligibility is concerned. That sounds fine on paper, until you actually need long-term care. Picture a man named Robert, 68 years old, retired, living in the home he and his late wife bought together 40 years ago. The house is paid off, worth around $400,000. A few years back, an attorney recommended a revocable living trust to avoid probate, and Robert did exactly that. He felt prepared. He felt protected. Then, at 73, Robert has a stroke. He needs a nursing facility, and the average cost in 2026 is running between $9,000 and $12,000 a month, not a year, a month. Robert applies for Medicaid to help cover that cost, and the caseworker looks at his revocable trust and counts the house as his asset, because legally, it still is. In most states, a single Medicaid applicant can only have around $2,000 in countable assets. $200,000. Robert's $400,000 home just disqualified him completely. Now here's where it gets even worse. Robert's family panics and tries to transfer the house out of the trust and into his daughter's name, hoping that fixes things quickly. But Medicaid has something called a look-back period. In most states, that's 60 months, 5 full years, during which every transfer, every gift, every you take the house now decision gets reviewed. Move that house within that window. And Medicaid doesn't just say no. They calculate a penalty period, a stretch of time where Robert is ineligible for coverage, even though he desperately needs it. And the math on that penalty is brutal. If the home is worth $400,000, and the average private pay rate for care is around $13,000 a month, Medicaid divides one by the other. That's roughly 30 months of ineligibility. 2.5 years where the family has to pay out of pocket, at $13,000 a month, before Medicaid will step in. Run that number, $13,000 times 30 months, that's $390,000, almost the entire value of the house, spent anyway, just in a different order. That's the trap, not because anyone was lazy, not because anyone made an obviously bad decision, but because they used the wrong tool for the wrong job, and nobody told them the difference until the bill arrived. But that's only part of the story, because there's a second family, and they did something different 5 years earlier. Let's call her Linda, the same age as Robert, similar home value, similar health history in her family. Linda's attorney didn't put her house into a revocable trust. Instead, at 68, while she was still healthy, Linda transferred her home into what's called an irrevocable Medicaid asset protection trust. The word irrevocable sounds scary, and that's exactly why most people avoid it. It means giving up direct control. Linda can no longer sell the home on a whim, can't pull it back into her own name, can't use it as collateral the way she used to. In exchange for giving up that control, something powerful happens. Once that 5-year look-back period passes, that home is no longer counted as Linda's asset at all. As far as Medicaid is concerned, Linda still gets to live in the home. She can still receive income generated from it. But on paper, for eligibility purposes, it's already left her estate. Now fast forward. Linda is 73, just like Robert. She also has a health event and needs nursing care, because she set this up more than 5 years earlier. And because she didn't touch it, didn't sell it, didn't try to undo it, that house simply does not count against her. Medicaid evaluates her based on the roughly $2,000 in countable assets she actually has, and she qualifies. No 30-month penalty, no $390,000 drain. The home stays in the family. When Linda eventually passes away, the home can pass to her children without the state filing what's called an estate recovery claim. The process where Medicaid tries to get reimbursed from your estate after you die, sometimes forcing a home sale just to settle the bill. Same age, same home value, same diagnosis. Two completely different financial outcomes, separated by one decision made years earlier and by understanding the difference between revocable and irrevocable. Here's what nobody is talking about though, and this is where things get even more complicated. Even an irrevocable trust isn't automatically safe. The 5-year look-back period applies to these trusts too. If you're 71 years old, in declining health, and someone suggests creating an irrevocable trust right now, hoping it'll protect you next year, that's not protection. That's a countdown clock that almost certainly won't finish in time. Medicaid planning of this kind only works when it's done early, while you're healthy, with years to spare. The families who get caught in this trap are almost always the ones who waited until a health scare forced the conversation, when 5 years suddenly feels impossible. And then something happened almost nobody expected. Something that's reshaping this entire conversation heading into 2026. Several states are actively rewriting their long-term care eligibility rules right now. California, for example, had eliminated its asset test for Medicaid a few years back, meaning almost anyone could qualify regardless of savings. But that's changing. As of January 2026, California is reinstating an asset limit, somewhere around $130,000 for an individual and roughly $195,000 for a couple. Anyone with assets above that has to either spend down or shelter those assets through proper planning before they apply. Meanwhile, on the opposite end, Pennsylvania has been moving in the other direction, working to phase out its 30-month look-back period entirely by the middle of 2026. While most other states keep the standard 5-year look-back firmly in place, that means the state you live in, or the state your aging parents live in, can completely change which strategy actually works. A plan that's perfect in one state can be useless, or even harmful, in another. There's also a piece of confusion that trips up almost every family, and it involves a number you've probably heard before: the annual gift tax exclusion. In 2026, the IRS allows individuals to gift up to $19,000 per recipient without having to file a gift tax return. People hear that number and assume it means Medicaid is fine with it too. It is not. Those are two completely separate systems with two completely separate sets of rules. You can gift $19,000 to your daughter and be perfectly fine with the IRS, while triggering a Medicaid penalty period at the exact same time, because to Medicaid, a gift is a gift, regardless of the tax exclusion. That single misunderstanding has cost families tens of thousands of dollars in delayed benefits, simply because they assumed tax rules and Medicaid rules were the same thing. They are not, and treating them as if they are is one of the most expensive assumptions in elder care planning. There's one more piece of this that deserves attention, because it affects married couples differently than single individuals. When one spouse needs nursing care and the other doesn't, Medicaid doesn't force the healthy spouse, often called the community spouse, into poverty. There's a protection called the Community Spouse Resource Allowance, and in 2026 it allows the healthy spouse to retain up to roughly $162,660 in combined assets, depending on the state. Some states set that figure much lower. South Carolina, for example, caps it around $66,000, while Illinois allows closer to $135,000. So even within married couples, your zip code can be the difference between keeping a comfortable cushion and being forced down to almost nothing. Now, step back for a second and think about the lifetime impact of all this. A family that gets this wrong isn't just losing a few months of savings, they're potentially losing the home itself, the asset that represents decades of mortgage payments, decades of property taxes, decades of maintenance and sacrifice. All of it converted into a few years of nursing home bills because the paperwork was set up incorrectly or set up too late. And on the other side, a family that gets this right doesn't just preserve a number on a balance sheet, they preserve a home that the next generation can actually inherit, live in, sell or pass down again. That's generational wealth, protected or destroyed, based on decisions made years before anyone even knew they'd be needed. So if there's one thing to take from all of this, it's that the words trust and protection are not interchangeable. A trust can protect your family from probate court. A different kind of trust, set up early enough, with enough runway before the 5-year look-back closes, can protect your family from losing everything to long-term care costs. But assuming one type of trust does the job of the other is exactly how families end up losing the very thing they thought they secured. If you're watching this and thinking about your own parents, your own home, or your own retirement plan, this is the moment to ask the real question. Not do I have a trust, but what kind of trust do I have, and when was it created? Because in 2026, with states rewriting these rules in real time, timing isn't just important. It's everything. I want to hear from you on this one. Do you or your parents already have a trust set up, and do you actually know whether it's revocable or irrevocable? Drop that in the comments because I guarantee you're not the only one who isn't sure. And if this video opened your eyes to something you didn't know about your own financial future, that's exactly why this channel exists. Hit subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next, because in our next video, we're going deeper into estate recovery, the part where states can come after a home years after someone passes away, even after Medicaid already paid the bills. If you thought this was a scary part, wait until you see that one. Like this video if it gave you something to think about, share it with someone whose parents are getting older, and I'll see you in the next one. Share.